In a rapidly escalating trade war that has reshaped the economic landscape between the United States and China, Chinese President Xi Jinping is signaling a strategic pivot towards strengthening ties with neighboring countries. His remarks made during a high-profile two-day conference on neighborhood diplomacy reflect a decisive move to enhance regional cooperation as tensions with the U.S. deepen. The shift comes on the heels of the Trump administration imposing severe tariffs, including a staggering 104% tax on Chinese imports, which has sent shockwaves through the global market. Xi's commitment to appropriately managing differences and enhancing supply chain ties underscores China's intent to counteract U.S. pressure and foster a united front among its regional allies. Building a community of a shared future remains a central tenet of Xi's diplomatic vision, albeit one that has struggled for broader international acceptance. As reported by the official news agency Xinhua, Xi asserted that China's relationships with its neighbors are at an unprecedented high, emphasizing the need to navigate shifts in regional dynamics and global developments. The backdrop of these diplomatic overtures is a fraught economic battlefield where the stakes are increasingly high. In a reciprocal move, China announced an additional 50% tariff on U.S. goods, bringing the total tax on American imports to an eye-watering 85%. These punitive measures, coupled with new export controls on several American companies, have raised alarms about an impending decoupling of the two largest economies. "This is a huge shock to the China-U.S. economic relationship, like an earthquake," remarked Wu Xinbo, dean of the Institute of International Studies at Fudan University. As tensions escalate, both nations find themselves locked in a perilous game of brinkmanship. Neither side is willing to appear weak or make concessions, a scenario that could exacerbate existing global tensions, particularly concerning technology and geopolitical flashpoints like Taiwan. Scott Kennedy, a senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, noted, "For China, this is about their sovereignty. This is about the Communist Party's hold on power. For Trump, it might just be a political campaign." The economic implications of this trade war are profound. China, already grappling with a property crisis and stagnant growth, now faces the dual pressures of a global recession and the collapse of its export-driven economy. The tariffs have provoked a visceral reaction among nationalistic factions within China, with social media discussions being scrubbed of dissenting views regarding the U.S. tariffs, highlighting the government's sensitivity to public sentiment. As President Trump utilizes aggressive trade tactics, China has positioned itself as a victim of U.S. protectionism while simultaneously employing its own restrictive measures against foreign investment. The irony of this situation is not lost on observers, given China's history of limiting foreign market access and subsidizing domestic firms to gain competitive advantages. Despite the tumultuous backdrop, Xi Jinping has sought to reassure foreign investors of China's commitment to fostering a welcoming business environment. He recently hosted international executives emphasizing the critical role of global partnerships in China's development. However, the path to restoring investor confidence is fraught with challenges, particularly as the fallout from the trade war threatens to dismantle decades of economic interdependence. Looking ahead, the potential for a complete decoupling of the U.S. and Chinese economies remains uncertain. While both nations continue to engage in high-stakes negotiations, the risk of further escalation looms large. Experts caution that any fracture in this relationship could reverberate across global markets, hindering collaboration on critical issues such as climate change and public health. As both nations brace for a protracted struggle, the outcome will likely define the geopolitical landscape for years to come, leaving many to wonder if a pathway to resolution exists amidst the rising tide of economic nationalism and the ever-evolving landscape of international trade. Recent developments have revealed a stark shift in the delicate balance between the United States and China. As the world's two largest economies grapple with escalating tensions, the consequences of these economic confrontations are beginning to reshape alliances, particularly within Asia. In a striking demonstration of this turbulence, President Trump's aggressive tariff policies have inadvertently pushed several European nations closer to China as they seek to navigate the increasingly protectionist global trade environment. The backdrop of this economic strife is marked by the Trump administration's sweeping tariff measures, which have sparked fierce retaliation from Beijing. As of April 9, 2025, China has responded with a staggering 50% tariff on American goods, effectively raising the import tax on U.S. products to 85%. This reciprocal action has created an atmosphere of uncertainty, prompting concerns from global leaders about the potential destabilization of the world trading system. Singapore's Minister for Foreign Affairs Vivian Balakrishnan articulated this fear, stating, "Our greatest fear is that this set of announcements has shaken the foundational pillars of the world trading system right down to the core. The implications of these tariffs stretch beyond the immediate economic impacts, they signal a profound geopolitical shift." With China portraying itself as a victim of American protectionism, the narrative of victimhood has resonated across the region. This has been further accentuated by Xi Jinping's call for a community with a shared future aimed at solidifying ties with neighboring countries and mitigating the fallout from U.S. tariffs. As she emphasized in a recent conference, the development of good neighborly relations is not merely a diplomatic nicety but a crucial strategy for China's national security and economic prosperity. The trend of European nations gravitating towards China as a counterbalance to U.S. tariffs is becoming increasingly evident. China's Belt and Road Initiative, which aims to connect Asia with Europe and beyond, has gained traction, making the Chinese economy an attractive partner for countries seeking stability amid U.S. protectionism. Reports indicate that despite rising tensions, China remains a preferred economic partner for ASEAN member states, with a survey conducted in January highlighting its favorable position in the region. However, the economic landscape remains fraught with challenges. The U.S. tariffs have exacerbated existing vulnerabilities within the Chinese economy, already reeling from a property crisis and a slowdown in trade. Analysts warn that the ramifications of this trade war could be severe, particularly for export-oriented businesses along China's eastern seaboard, which primarily serve American consumers. As Wang Yuesheng, director of the Institute of International Economics at Peking University, noted, "The impact on China is mainly that Chinese products have nowhere to go." This looming economic threat underscores the complexity of the situation as both nations engage in a high-stakes game of brinkmanship. In the midst of this trade turmoil, both sides appear entrenched in their positions, unwilling to cede any ground. The stakes are further heightened by the potential for broader geopolitical ramifications as the conflict spills over into other contentious areas such as technology and Taiwan. Scott Kennedy from the Center for Strategic and International Studies aptly characterized the situation. "Trump has never gone into a back-alley brawl where the other side is willing to brawl and use the same kind of tactics as him." As the trade war escalates, the international community is left grappling with the potential fallout. A decoupling of the U.S. and Chinese economies, while still a distant prospect, is becoming increasingly conceivable. The interconnectedness of global supply chains means that the repercussions of this conflict will likely be felt worldwide, affecting everything from technological innovation to climate change initiatives. Looking ahead, the future of U.S.-China relations remains uncertain. The current trajectory suggests that unless a viable diplomatic solution is reached, both nations may find themselves locked in a protracted struggle that could redefine global trade dynamics for years to come. As countries around the world watch closely, the evolving landscape will undoubtedly influence their own economic strategies and alliances, shaping the next chapter in the complex saga of international relations. As tensions escalate between the United States and China, the two economic giants find themselves locked in an increasingly dangerous game of brinkmanship. The latest round of tariffs, marked by an unprecedented 125% levy imposed by the Trump administration on Chinese imports, has prompted an equally aggressive response from Beijing, which announced its own 50% tariff on U.S. goods, pushing the total import tax on American products to a staggering 84%.
This tit-for-tat exchange signals a deepening rift that could have far-reaching implications for the global economy. The rapid escalation of these tariffs has been met with fierce rhetoric from both sides.
Nationalist Chinese bloggers have likened Trump's trade strategies to an act of war, while Chinese officials have vowed to fight to the end, framing the U.S. actions as coercive and unjust. Scott Kennedy, a senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, highlights the unique nature of this conflict, noting that while Trump's aggressive tactics may resonate in U.S. politics, Xi Jinping's response is deeply tied to the Chinese Communist Party's legitimacy and sovereignty.
For Trump,
it might just be a political campaign, Kennedy said, emphasizing the differences in stakes for each leader. The stakes extend beyond mere economics. They touch on broader issues of national identity and power. The fallout from this trade war is already being felt across various sectors. American consumers are poised to face higher prices on everyday goods such as electronics and clothing as the tariffs drive up costs. For instance, analysts predict that the price of basic items including smartphones could rise significantly, an outcome that could exacerbate inflation and dampen consumer spending in the U.S. economy.
Meanwhile, China's economy, already grappling with sluggish demand and a property crisis, may suffer even more. Experts warn that the additional tariffs could decimate export-driven industries, particularly in coastal regions where many companies rely on American consumers. Wang Yuesheng, director of the Institute of International Economics at Peking University, notes that Chinese products have nowhere to go, emphasizing the precarious position of manufacturers reliant on U.S. markets. In the context of these escalating tensions, Xi Jinping has begun to hint at a global realignment, urging closer ties with neighboring countries as a countermeasure to American pressure. His call for strengthening industrial and supply chain cooperation reflects a strategic pivot that could reshape global trade dynamics. This shift is evident as China seeks to diversify its trade relationships, having already increased imports from countries like Brazil and Argentina in response to U.S. tariffs on agricultural products. Despite the potential for severe economic repercussions, there is a prevailing sense that neither side is willing to back down. Both Trump and Xi are entrenched in their positions, unwilling to appear weak in the face of escalating pressure. This impasse raises concerns about the possibility of a full-scale economic decoupling,
which analysts suggest would likely stall global growth and disrupt supply chains worldwide. As the world watches this unfolding drama, the implications extend well beyond the immediate economic landscape. An ongoing trade war between the two largest economies could hamper international collaboration on pressing global issues, including climate change and security challenges. The interconnectedness of the global economy means that the fallout will not be contained to the U.S. and China. Businesses and consumers worldwide will feel the impact of rising prices, disrupted supply chains, and economic uncertainty. Looking ahead, the potential for diplomatic engagement remains uncertain. Analysts suggest that both nations may need to face the reality of their interdependence and consider avenues for negotiation to avoid further escalation. However, as both governments prepare for a protracted conflict, the prospect of finding common ground appears increasingly remote. The coming weeks and months will be crucial in determining whether a path toward resolution can be carved out or if this trade war will lead to deeper divisions and long-lasting economic consequences. Amid escalating tensions in the Taiwan Strait, China is intensifying its military maneuvers and strategic posturing, marking a critical juncture in its long-standing ambitions regarding Taiwan. Recent military drills, coupled with the unveiling of specialized amphibious invasion equipment, underscore Beijing's resolve to project strength and preparedness as it navigates a complex geopolitical landscape influenced by U.S. involvement in the region. On April 1 and 2, the People's Liberation Army (PLA) conducted extensive military exercises dubbed Straits Thunder 2025, simulating a blockade of Taiwan and effectively demonstrating its growing military capabilities. According to Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense, the exercises involved the deployment of the aircraft carrier Shandong and numerous naval vessels surrounding Taiwan, while a significant number of military aircraft crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait, a previously respected unofficial boundary. National Security Bureau Director General Tsai Ming-yen explained that these drills served a dual purpose: to showcase military strength in light of the U.S. Department of Defense's renewed focus on the Indo-Pacific, and to bolster domestic morale amid a reported purge of high-ranking military officials perceived as loyal to President Xi Jinping. China aims to demonstrate that it can organize large-scale drills despite ongoing internal challenges, Tsai stated during a legislative hearing. Referring to the arrests of top military leaders who were part of a broader power struggle within the Chinese Communist Party. The timing of these exercises was seen as a direct response to U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's recent tour of the Indo-Pacific, further heightening tensions between Washington and Beijing. Adding another layer to this strategic calculus is China's introduction of a new class of amphibious bridge barges known as shuiqiao, or bridge barges designed specifically for a potential invasion of Taiwan. These vessels, which can be assembled into long relocatable piers, represent a significant advancement in China's amphibious warfare capabilities. Drawing parallels to the Mulberry harbors utilized during the D-Day invasion in World War II. They are intended to facilitate the rapid offloading of military vehicles and supplies once a beachhead is established. Dr. Andrew Erickson of the U.S. Naval War College highlights the strategic implications of these barges, noting that they are neither commercial nor multi-role military vessels but rather specialized platforms aimed at enabling large-scale troop and equipment landings. The shuiqiaos are not a game-changer, but they significantly complicate the scenario for Taiwan's defense, Erickson noted, emphasizing China's serious commitment to its goal of unifying Taiwan under its banner. As these developments unfold, the perception of an imminent threat looms large. Analysts suggest that Xi Jinping's administration is not only preparing for a possible military confrontation but is also leveraging psychological operations to instill fear and doubt within Taiwan. By fostering an environment of uncertainty, Beijing hopes to influence the upcoming 2028 Taiwanese elections, potentially swaying public opinion against the current ruling party, the Democratic Progressive Party (DPP), which has taken a firm stance against Chinese encroachment. However, the situation remains fluid. The PLA's military drills and the introduction of the shuiqiao barges are indicative of a broader strategy that may include coercive tactics designed to undermine Taiwan's resolve without engaging in direct conflict. The U.S. response to these provocations has been swift, with statements from the State Department condemning China's military activities as exacerbating regional tensions and endangering global stability. Ultimately, the stakes are high as Taiwan, bolstered by American support, endeavors to enhance its defensive posture against an increasingly assertive Beijing. As military exercises continue and new technologies are deployed, the international community watches closely, aware that any miscalculation could have profound implications for peace and security in the region. The next few years will be crucial, as both sides prepare for a potential flashpoint that could redefine the balance of power in East Asia. In a significant display of diplomatic intent, Chinese President Xi Jinping has emphasized the importance of strengthening ties with neighboring nations as tensions escalate in the ongoing trade war with the United States. Speaking at a high-profile Central Conference on Neighborhood Diplomacy held in Beijing from April 8 to 9, Xi's remarks mark his first public address since the recent intensification of economic hostilities between Washington and Beijing. Xi's call for enhanced strategic bonds with neighboring countries comes at a time when the U.S. has imposed a staggering 104% tariff on a range of Chinese goods, a decision that has reverberated throughout global markets and prompted a swift reaction from Beijing. Building a community of a shared future is not merely a slogan for Xi, it represents a core tenet of his vision for China's role in regional and global affairs. He stressed the need to appropriately manage differences with neighboring states while bolstering supply chain ties, signaling a shift towards a more cooperative regional approach amidst external pressures. At the same time, we are entering a pivotal stage deeply intertwined with shifts in regional dynamics and global developments, Xi stated, reflecting on the current complexities of international relations. This conference, notable for being the first dedicated session on neighborhood diplomacy by China's top leadership since 2013, underscores the growing focus that Beijing has placed on its immediate relationships in the face of increasing competition with the U.S. According to a release from the official Xinhua news agency, she noted that China's relationships with its neighbors are at their best level in modern history. This assertion is crucial as it indicates a strategic pivot towards fostering stronger ties with nations such as Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia, countries she is expected to visit shortly. The Chinese leader reiterated that deepening economic integration and enhancing connectivity through strengthened industrial and supply chain cooperation will be vital to navigating the current geopolitical landscape. The backdrop of Xi's remarks is marked by the broader implications of the U.S. tariffs, which have adversely affected not only China but also other nations in the region. In response, Xi's emphasis on regional cooperation reflects a strategic maneuver to consolidate relationships that can serve as a buffer against external economic shocks. Foreign Minister Wang Yi has underscored the significance of maintaining stability in neighboring countries, asserting that regional peace is foundational to China's broader diplomatic strategy. Experts have highlighted the importance of China's approach, suggesting that bolstering relationships with neighboring countries can enhance the resilience of its foreign policy. As Yang Xuedong, a political science director at Tsinghua University, noted, the ongoing trade war has prompted neighboring countries to seek deeper cooperation with China to enhance their own capacities to withstand external pressures. In light of the escalating trade war, the Chinese government has already announced reciprocal tariffs on U.S. goods set to take effect on April 10, 2025. Alongside new export controls on rare earth elements vital for technology production. This multifaceted response is indicative of China's strategy to leverage its economic relationships to counterbalance U.S. pressures while simultaneously seeking to foster a united front among its neighbors. Additionally, a government white paper has disclosed that U.S. tariffs have impacted over $500 billion worth of Chinese exports since the conflict began in 2018, underscoring the economic strain that these tariffs have placed on China. In this context, Xi's call for a community with a shared future resonates more than ever as he seeks to establish a collaborative framework with neighboring countries that can help stabilize the region and promote mutual growth. Looking ahead, the ongoing diplomatic efforts signal a pivotal moment for China's foreign relations strategy. As she navigates the complexities of rising tensions with the U.S., the emphasis on regional cooperation and economic integration could redefine the dynamics of China's relationships with its neighbors. The success of these initiatives will not only influence China's role in the Asia-Pacific region but could also serve as a model for how nations adapt to an increasingly protectionist global environment. With the stakes higher than ever, the coming months will be crucial in determining how effectively China can consolidate its neighborhood diplomacy in the face of external challenges.